Hello and welcome to episode 58 of TBR, the To Be Read podcast, where we talk about the books we love and the topics that interest us. I'm Patrick Stemp, and as always, I have Michael Ron and Jamie Maltman here. How are you guys doing?
Hey, Patrick.
And tonight we have Buddy Gott joining us. How are you, Buddy?
I'm great, thanks. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
Thanks for coming on.
I'm a big fan of the show. Oh, my pleasure.
And Michael's back from a week off vacation. How did that go?
I survived. That's all.
Good.
I survived. Yeah, we took my 9-month-old back to my hometown. So it was a fun trip. It was definitely super tired, but it was a good trip.
Was that a lot of hours on the road with the baby?
6.5. Well, actually, yeah, it was 6.5 hours on the road, but the benefit was that I got a lot of reading done in the downtime. So
Well, that's always a plus.
yeah, I mean, nothing beats a good vacation like being able to read, right?
Mm-hmm.
Got to have that time, so definitely took advantage of that. So
Good.
yeah, it's good to be back.
And I was looking back. I was going to say Buddy's wife, Lisa, was actually our first guest on the show.
Yeah.
I think she episode 7, so like 51 episodes, so just about a year ago.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, I was listening to that earlier today.
Back when she was Lisa Stahl, before she made an honest man out of Buddy.
Yes. Yeah, I always think she's great. Yeah, she was fantastic on your show, I thought.
She
And
was.
She says hi to all of you,
Yeah.
by the way.
And hi back to her. We'll have to have her on
Wonderful.
again sometime soon.
Yeah.
So tonight our topic is buddies in fiction, and we'll get to that. But first of all, Buddy, do you want to talk a little bit about maybe just the kinds of things you like to read in general? Are you a sci-fi guy or fiction, mysteries?
I've mainly been mysteries. I've been trying lately to branch out into things I wouldn't normally read, but my main thing my whole life has always been mysteries. My favorite writer is Lawrence Block. I'm also a huge fan of Robert B. Parker. And that's been my main thing. I like a lot of humorous fiction too. Like I love like The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, things like that. It's really hard to find like really good humorous fiction. I find sometimes, some just gets far too wacky. And but you guys did. I saw you did a show recently. Did a show, Humor and Fiction. I haven't had a chance to watch that yet, but I'm gonna. This was a nice reminder to me to tune into that one.
Now, have you read? I know you're a huge Lawrence Block fan. Have you read any of his nonfiction? Like, because he's a walker, right? And I think he's written a couple books about like these long walks that he does.
Yeah, I was just telling Lisa, my wife, that there's one of my favorite books by him, and probably one of my favorite books by anyone. It's called Step by Step, a pedestrian memoir. He did that, I think, about 5-6 years ago. That was a time when I was really getting into walking as my main form of exercise. And it's great because it's half autobiography and half all about his life as a walker. He had, I guess, way back in the late 70s or early 80s, he had quit drinking, quit smoking, wanted to get healthier. He took up running, and then I think he had some knee injury, something like that. He got more into walking, marathons, that sort of thing, and it talks about different things. He got away from it. I think he got really into it, and then he got away from it for like 20-some years, got back into it in his late 60s, and it's an incredible read. It's probably much better than I'm making it sound, but it talks some about his writing life and just, his journeys with these walks, and like a big walking expedition he and his wife went on, like over in a couple different countries. It's really good. I highly recommend that. Step by step.
Cool. So we'll do our weekly roundtable, and why don't we start with Michael, since he was away last week.
All right. Well, I don't remember what I talked about 2 weeks ago. So some of this might be repeat, some of it might not be. But I read quite a few short stories and poems just because they were kind of quick. So just different literary magazines, different journals. Some pretty cool stuff that I read, and maybe I'm not done with any collections yet, so I'll report on those when I'm done. But I did finish The Martian. I don't know if I had announced that or not. I think I was like almost through with it last episode I was on, but yeah, I finished it and liked it a lot. It was really cool. Can't wait for the movie. I think the movie's going to be awesome. Haven't seen the trailer, so.
Buddy, have you ever read The Martian?
I have not, but I know you've been a fan of it for quite some time, and I did.
We're now 3 thumbs up here, right?
6 thumbs.
Well, probably
fans, right?
Yeah.
I'm really anxious to read it. I mean, I saw a preview for the movie, and of course that looks fantastic. But when it comes to that kind of thing, I always want to read the book first. So I think I'm gonna have to dive into that soon.
My wife just actually started. I was going to say my wife just started it a couple of days ago, and she's really enjoying it. So that was cool. I said, "Hey, do you like the science?" She's like, "It's fun." Like and then when they switch over to start doing the stuff from the Earth side, it's like she's like, "Oh my gosh!" And it's great. So it's really well done.
Oh, cool! I will have to check that out.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely a great recommendation, Patrick. I think it's going to lend itself to movie form really well. Just the way that it was written, and just the character. I mean, you're just rooting for him, by the end of the story. So, yeah, I finished that, and then I picked up a recommendation that Andy Weir made on the show, actually, the Culture series by Ian and Banks, and I picked up Consider Phlebas. And I'm not sure I'm pronouncing it correctly, but it's book 1 in the Culture series, and I didn't know this, but I guess it's a space opera. And space opera, I guess, had been dead. I guess it was really popular in the 30s, and it just kind of petered out. And Ian M. Banks was the one that kind of made space opera cool again. So I've actually never really read a true space opera. Well, I guess you could call Green Star space opera, right? Or
Yeah.
Kind of. It's space opera-ish. It's got opera-ish. Funny as hell, but space opera-ish. This is really serious. This is. I can see why space opera is popular today. Like why? I guess he wrote it back in 1987, and it follows this culture, and I guess they're called like a culture, and it's like a society, and people use artificial intelligence, and they just kind of have everything done for them. It's like a pampered society, and there's the hero is actually anti-culture, and he's a changer, so he has the ability to shapeshift, and he's in cahoots with this religious fanatical sect who's trying to bring down the culture. And you don't really know why he's working for them when it starts off, but as the novel continues, you start to realize his story, and just I will say this about the book: it was a tough start. Like it's one of those where sometimes you read a book and you get to the end of it and you're like, wow, how did I stick through this? And I'm so glad I did, right? Because if I think I had that urge to put it down within the first 2 or 3 chapters, but because the writing style was really dense, I had no idea what the hell was going on. All the characters had these weird, crazy names. It was a lot of name dropping, all that stuff that people accuse science fiction of. But once I got to chapter 4, boom, it was awesome. Like it just tons of action, tons of adventure. The writing is fantastic. It's super imagistic. I mean, you can just really see it, and you really get a feel for the character. And I like the main character a lot. So I'm about halfway through that, and it's a pretty big book. I think it's like 500 pages. So that's longer than what I typically read, but
okay.
I like it a lot. I think it's like 7 books. So I'll definitely be reading the rest of the books in the series. So
wow. Okay.
That's what I've been reading lately.
Okay. How about you, Buddy? Have you been getting any reading done lately?
Yeah, I have. I just started a book the other day. It's by David Bell. It's a suspense novel. It just came out last week. It's called Somebody I Used to Know. And I had heard of him. I know he had a couple of successful novels out. I wrote them down so I wouldn't forget. The Forgotten Girl and Cemetery Girl. I haven't read those, but I already know I'm going to go and check out more of his work. It's really good. It's about this man. I think he's around 40 years old. And when he was in college, he had a girlfriend who died in a fire. It was the love of his life. Now he's divorced and not the happiest guy in the world. But one night he's in a grocery store and he sees this young girl, roughly around 20 years old, who looks, identical to his late girlfriend. And he asks her, I don't want to give away too much, but it's the first chapter, but he asks her if she's related to this family, that his ex-girlfriend, his late girlfriend, had been a part of, and she freaks out, runs away. The next day, it turns out this girl's been murdered, and she was found with his name and telephone number on her person. So nice. It leads into, it's pretty cool. It kind of reminds me of, I've read a couple books by Harlan Coben. It's kind of got that kind of vibe, that sort of suspenseful vibe. And today I was off from work today. I spent the bulk of the day reading that. Right now I'm at the 88% mark, and it's just coming down to everything's about to be answered. And as soon as I get done with you guys, I'm diving right back into that. It's really been a good read.
Cool.
That's cool. That sounds like fun.
Yeah, it's a fun read.
Yeah, I've never read any Harlan Coben, but he's a name that kind of jumps out when you're in the bookstore. Like we've seen him for years on the shelves, right?
Yeah, and it seems like his fan base just keeps growing more and more with each release that he has out. I've only read a couple, but they're good reads, the couple that I've read.
Okay. So, Jamie, what have you been reading?
I've been continuing a bunch of graphic novel stuff on all fronts, actually. My son just got into Adventure Time a couple of weeks ago, so I've now been reading the Adventure Time volumes as well, which are really a lot of fun. Like I'm enjoying both the show and the graphic novels with them. So those are by Ryan North, the book version of them. I think we're into the second one now, and they're pretty long too. Like there's a bunch of episodes sort of coming together in them. Just again, really wacky stuff, which kind of balances out some of the regular reading I was doing, which was finished up Alice in Wonderland. Which it's funny, I don't know that I'd ever actually read the whole thing. I loved the movie when I was a kid, and still like the movie now, and I love that kind of stuff. And it's so neat. I'm actually partially into Through the Looking Glass now, and it's neat seeing what Disney took from where to make the movie, because it's like, I don't know, like 64, or I don't know, there's probably like 20% cut, and then 80% of the first book, and so far maybe 30% of the second book woven in scene by scene to make the movie, and so that's kind of neat to see how that all came together. And I know you've been asking what I think of it. I like it. It's really strange. The biggest difference from the movie is so much of it is like Alice just seems like a straight man kind of character in the book or in the movie, right? Like she's going through completely nuts stuff is happening. She's really losing it in the book. Like she's talking to herself continuously, both inside and outside, and just sort of strange stream of consciousness stuff, and it really blurs together, and it seems a lot more sort of psychedelic almost than even the movie does when you read the book. So it's pretty crazy that that's kid stuff back 150 years ago, right?
Yeah, I just got that just about a month ago on my Kindle. I saw a really good deal on it, and I had never read it, and I just skimmed the first few chapters so far, but I'm like, oh my god, this is fantastic, and it's so bizarre, like you said, like sort of psychedelic, and I'm just like, wow, this is I don't think I ever read it like you. I saw the movies and thoroughly enjoyed them, but I'm really anxious to dive into the book. It's not something I would ever think as a child that I would enjoy reading as an adult, but looking at it, I'm like, wow, this was fantastically written.
Yeah, and it's really short too.
Yeah, it's like 88 pages or something each.
Yeah,
so. Pretty dense, 88 pages though, because it's so much of it is like it's long paragraphs of her talking to herself and stuff. So, and then I also did. I continued on with one that I know Michael had started a little while ago, the Rassel or RASL or whatever it's actually called. So that's Jeff Smith's adult graphic novel that he did after Bone, and I read Volume 2, which was The Fire of St. George, and Volume 3, which is Romance at the Speed of Light, which is one way you might take Rassel, right? To be. So it's really cool. I think I've enjoyed it more and more as I went along. I know I was saying like that the fact that the main character looks a little bit like a caveman but is supposed to have sort of higher scientific knowledge just seemed a little weird. But it comes together, and the story's really neat, and there's all this sort of Nikola Tesla stuff, and he actually researched a bunch of things and wove it in, some strange, mysterious stuff that happened around Tesla's life, and some of the stuff that might have been related to things he was working on, and brought it all to actually matter in the books, or in the books. So that's been pretty cool. And I've also finished up that next one of those Jeffrey Brown, the Star Wars Jedi Academy thing with my son, the one I was telling you about. So this was the second one, Return of the Padawan, which is, again, my son's not getting the jokes because it's all these like school-related jokes for a Padawan and stuff. But still, I think they're kind of fun. Like for probably like a tween boy to read would probably enjoy that, or a girl that likes the Star Wars stuff. But it's because.
Jamie frozen for you guys too?
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh-oh.
So we'll give him a minute. Thankfully, the whole show isn't crashing there. Just one person.
The person was like, "Oh man, is it me?"
Yeah, I know.
Okay, no, it's me. I could tell that I was freezing there. Yeah, so I finished up that one again. For the Jeffrey Brown stuff, I'd far more recommend the short comic ones, which are like the Vader's Little Princess and Darth Vader and Son, and those ones are really, really fun. And the final thing was I've been continuing to read that one Nature Wars, the other Hugh Howey recommendation. So Nature Wars, the incredible story of how wildlife comebacks turn backyards into battlegrounds by Jim Sturba. The first part of it was fantastic. The part talking about how the great eastern forest in the United States came back and nobody really noticed, and why that is now bringing nature into conflict with humanity in really neat ways. And now the chapters, one by one, are now talking about, there was a chapter on beavers and their impact and what the battles are like and how crazy it is. And then one on white-tailed deer, which I think, were you in Pennsylvania or somewhere that range, Buddy, or no? Or did I get that wrong?
Close. I'm in Delaware, so that's
Delaware, okay.
Yeah.
Half the stuff that's happening would be happening in the various states there. I know, like, beavers, it was like, wow, beavers are coming back. Now it's like, wow, they're this horrible menace that floods my backyard and does stuff. White-tailed deer, oh my gosh,
I have beavers in my backyard.
There's no deer and Bambi, and now it's like they're vermin that are eating everything and causing problems, and people hit them with their cars, and turkeys and Canada geese. Like it's and the stories of how they came back are often very interesting, and people think, oh, well, we're the ones that got in their way. Well, a lot of the time we wiped them out. They weren't here at all. But then because we built suburbs the way we did, they're all coming back, and they create a perfect habitat for these creatures. And it's really, really complicated. And the discussions that happen in every state, county, city where this stuff's going on it's a disaster. And it just, as you read this stuff, you're like, as an outsider, you're like, oh my, like how do they deal with this? Because everyone wants different stuff, and they're completely antagonistic. And everyone that's calling for like humane movement of the animals somewhere else, it's just a matter of when they die, because nobody wants them. So are you going to do it quickly, or are you going to spend a lot of money to do it and then have to do it quickly? Or it's really interesting, and I think a lot of people would find it just a really different perspective, because a lot of the environmental side, again, like it's so neat. I love these books that Hugh Howey keeps recommending, because he is very concerned about the environment, but he's also very pragmatic, and all these books take that edge, which matches sort of my worldview, and I'm enjoying that a lot. So I think I'm still only about halfway, so I'm curious to see what he's going to say. Is sort of, does he have a solution, or it's just a big problem?
Well, you remember I don't know if this was viral on the internet a while ago. Whoops. Sorry, I think I just turned my volume down there by accident. But the comment on the internet, how to very easily solve the problem of deer crossing on the highways and getting hit by cars was just to move the damn signs so they know a safer way to cross, or a safer place to cross. I seem to remember that. I don't know if that's one of those things where you wonder, did the girl who suggested that, did she seriously think that was a good solution, or is
I did that on my street,
or is this a joke?
Very well.
Yeah.
Mixture of both, probably.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That's it.
That's my week.
Okay. So I finished reading Harry Potter and the Prisoner of Azkaban.
Nice.
Which is, book 3?
Yep.
And so I enjoyed it, but I also found that I was I don't know if this is because I've seen the movies, and so I know what's happening, and this book does get, it seems to me, a little bit further away from, or where the movie kind of diverged a little bit more from the book. Still pretty close, but not quite as close as the first two. And I did find in reading the the climax towards the end, where they're starting to wrap things up, and they're having this conversation in this old house, and I did find myself kind of thinking oh, dear God, get to the point. This long drawn out conversation that they have, there's no epic battle per se, it's more of a conversation, and I just kind of wanted it to end. And Voldemort's not in it, whereas I think he is in the movie, if I remember correctly, which was probably a good idea to include him. But I did enjoy it, and I'm going to move on to the next one. But in between those books, I decided to read through Percy Jackson and the Olympians, the first book in that series. That's The Lightning Thief. And have any of you guys read that one?
I started The Lightning Thief.
Okay.
I didn't get all the way through it.
I took the kids to see the movie, the first one. I don't know how long ago that is now, but we really, really enjoyed the movie. Haven't seen the second movie yet, but it's a series that I've been wanting to read in the YA genre, and I really liked it. I blew right through it. It was a lot of fun, and people like to compare it to Harry Potter because there's the lead, and then the sort of the stuck-up girl friend and the kind of weird male companion as well. But I thought it was I thought it was a good fun read. I can see kids really enjoying it a lot. I don't know if I'm going to read the second one first or see the movie, but it's definitely a series I'm going to stick with. I enjoyed it a lot. And then I read today about halfway through Ernest Cline's new book that just came out today, Armada. He wrote Ready Player One, which for a lot of people is sort of their favorite book of a couple years ago when it came out, and it's one of my all-time favorite books. Absolutely loved it. I'm reserving judgment on Armada for now. I'll talk about it more next week because I'm honestly not sure how I feel about it yet. And it's, I really feel for these authors where I don't want to say that Ready Player One was the first thing Ernest Cline ever wrote. I don't know. He could have written 10 books before that, and that was just the one that he, the whole overnight success thing, right? He's an overnight success who's been plugging away at it for 10 years, or maybe it is the first thing he did. But that's got to be tough to have a book that's that successful and then to try to follow it up, like Andy Weir with The Martian. Like we've talked about that before. Like it's got to be terrifying writing that second book. And so there's a lot of similarities between Armada and Ready Player One. Ready Player One was very 80s, 70s, 80s, video games. There was a lot of plugging in of arcane knowledge and the video game world, and there's a lot of that here too. And so I'm not quite sure it works. I have to, like I said, I kind of want to finish it before I decide quite how I feel about it because I'm a little on the fence about it right now. But I'll finish that up for next week. And with that, we can move into our topic of the week, which is buddies in fiction.
How did you come up with that?
Yeah, I don't know. I just rolled the dice.
That's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome.
So, does anybody... I have my list. I'm sure everybody has a list.
I have a list.
I have a list.
There we go.
Your list beats mine, buddy.
Go ahead. Why don't you start, buddy?
Okay. Well, I had mentioned earlier that I'm a big fan of Robert B. Parker, who did the Spencer novels, as well as other things, of course. And I don't know if you guys have read the Spencer novels. It was turned into a TV show starring Robert Urich, Spencer for Hire. But I've always loved the friendship between Spencer and his best friend, whose name is Hawk. Hawk's this really bad, tough guy, and that like outside of the stories that are in those books, the Spencer books, I mean, he does some very not so good things. He's definitely got like a criminal background and all that. But the relationship between these guys, they're like probably my favorite buddies in like the different mystery series that I've read over the years. Big fan of Spencer and Hawk. And there was something I just read last week where I like too when there's friends, buddies who you wouldn't think would be friends too, and they kind of have a weird beginning. And this book I want to highly recommend. It's called The New Cat. I don't know if you've heard of it. It's by a fellow named Patrick S. Stemp and Anita. How do you pronounce her last name, Patrick?
Solver.
Yep. Yeah, and I don't want to give away too much. Kids, if you're watching and you want to read the book, you might want to walk away for a few seconds. I don't want to spoil anything, but you got this cat who's got like this new dog in the cat's life, and the cat wants to be friends, and the dog doesn't necessarily know that, but like at the end, kids, again, don't watch, they're good buddies, and it's really, I like that kind of thing, and I'll tell you, this is really, I really enjoyed this, Patrick. Really
Thanks.
Good book. Yeah.
That's one that I smile whenever I see that. Anita's just abilities with the illustrations just amaze me every time I see them.
Yeah, the illustrations are great. The story is great. I mean, you both did a wonderful job on that.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
So let's see. I've got a few. So since I just read Percy Jackson, and I guess we might as well put Harry Potter into the same, there's that sort of triumvirate of friends too. So in Percy Jackson, if you haven't read it, or have you guys seen the movie? If you haven't read the books, the Percy Jackson. So he's got a couple friends that he's paired with, and Grover, who is someone who's tasked with kind of keeping Percy Jackson safe, and so they would be the Ron Weasley, Harry Potter sort of pair, And then in Percy Jackson, you've got Annabeth, who's the kind of stuck-up character, and of course you've got Hermione Granger there, and with Harry Potter. But and that's something I have noticed with the books for Harry Potter, which is a little bit different than the movies. In the movies, they really put those three together as sort of an inseparable trio, although they maybe didn't like Hermione at the beginning. But more so in the books, it seems that they really, I don't want to say they don't like her, but they are kind of, she ticks them off a lot. They're not quite as immediately, a trio. It really is more Ron and Harry. So that's a good pair up there. And one of the questions I think I asked when setting up the show is, did Ron think that he was the hero of that story? And I don't. It would be interesting to see some stories sort of told from that perspective of, a guy who thinks he's the hero of the story, only to find out that he's really been playing second fiddle all along to, the true hero.
Well, that's the classic Frodo and Sam.
Yeah, that's the segue to them for sure.
That's what makes me think. What didn't Tolkien say that The Lord of the Rings is really Sam's story?
I've heard.
I don't know if I heard that.
Samwise.
I don't know if I heard that somewhere.
Right?
Yeah, That's not spoiling it. Yeah.
They play that moment so beautifully in the movie too. Like I was just watching that part with my kids a couple months ago. But that end is the second movie where he's doing his little talk and he's like, "Do you think they'll even remember me?" And just the conversation between him and Sam there, between Frodo and Sam there. I love that moment, and it captures that part of the book really well. And yeah, no, that's far and away the first one that comes to my mind, because there's so many people for whom Sam is their favorite character, period, right, in the whole thing. So that's the buddy really shining through, and it's his buddiness that is what is all about too, right? So it really brings that all together perfectly. The quintessential buddy.
I really like the non-human buddies, I guess we'll call them, but and I've a couple examples recently that I've read was so in the Stephen Brust, the Vlad Taltos books, he's got this familiar and I never know how to pronounce any of the names in his books, but Loyosh, who's like this Jireg, which is basically like a dragon that he's raised from an egg, and it's not a massive, Lord of the Rings dragon. It's small enough that it can kind of sit on his shoulder, and it helps him out. But they have a mental link, and they're best friends, and they have these really funny conversations just between the two of them that no one else can hear. And along the same sort of lines in the his Dark Materials trilogy by Philip Pullman, with the Golden Compass, same kind of thing. All of the characters in those books have a demon familiar. Kind of like a conscience. It's just a part of who they are. Every person has one of these, and so hers, Pantalaimon. Again, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly, but same sort of thing. It's really neat where they have these characters and that have that mental connection that they can talk and have this adventure together. And I like that sort of idea of the buddy as well.
Or even like non-traditional buddies. Like I think of like Unicorn Western, right, where you've got the gunslinger and the unicorn.
Yeah,
have this really interesting relationship, which pretty cool. And
I love that series.
It's a great series. It really is. Like the camaraderie between Clint and Edward it's awesome. It's got a really great arc. And these aren't books, but I figured I would mention them anyway. But the Pixar movies, right? Woody and Buzz Lightyear, or Wally and Eve. Gosh,
Lightning and Mater. No, Lightning and Mater. Mater.
Yeah, exactly. Like Pixar. I mean, those are classic buddy films.
Well, Up with the old man and the little boy. I can't remember their names.
Oh, Up. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, what a great movie that was.
Yeah, I mean, all the Pixar movies. I couldn't not mention them, but.
Has anyone seen the newest?
I haven't yet. I heard it's pretty good.
Yeah. What's it called again?
Up Down or Up Inside Out.
Inside Out.
Yeah,
right. That one looks
down from.
The children's Herman's Head, right?
Oh wow, Herman's Head. There's a classic.
That's what it was, though, right?
The other another one I was thinking of too is, and I don't know if you would consider this a buddy, but I think I was thinking of 8 Ball in the Sawyer Jackson.
Totally, I was.
That was on my list too. Yep.
So 8 Ball, the Akashic Sphere, if I've got that right, isn't necessarily a buddy of the main character, but certainly is of the mentor character, right? But he's just, it's one of those sort of quirky, funny characters that's in the book. I would kind of equate maybe him to sort of R2-D2 and C-3PO. Like, they're not always around, but when they are, they really are kind of involved enough with the main character that you would consider them, a close friend.
Yeah, that works. I was going to give a couple of fantasy examples. One that I actually haven't even gotten into the main series yet, but I've read a couple of his short stories, and that's Michael J. Sullivan. The series is the Ryria Chronicles that was originally indie published and then went with what's it called? With Orbit, I think, published it, and I think he might have had a couple publishers since. And he writes a lot actually too, like blogs a lot about stuff along with his wife. But he has there's like an assassin and a warrior that are together, and the interplay between the two, just in the short stories, was fantastic. And they're like paired together, and now they've got to do some thieving stuff. But one's more just the regular badass, and one's more sometimes has a conscience. But there's just some really neat stuff. So I think the first book, I've got that on my to-be-read list and haven't gotten to it in a while. But the Crown Tower is the first book in that series, and I noticed people love that dynamic. So that's a cool one there. And one that's sort of a bit of a buddy group, but it just comes across in a really neat way. Now I'm blanking on the name. Here, someone else go. I'll find it because I'm blanking on it.
Well, I was going to mention one.
Go ahead. Yeah,
I was going to mention one from television. I had said before that I really like, sort of unusual pairings of friends, and I don't know if Jamie and Michael are like, you might be too young to know this, but I know Patrick will know it. Ralph Hinckley and Bill Maxwell from the Greatest American Hero TV show.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, two guys. You had the old FBI agent with the young superhero, who the reluctant superhero, and. Couldn't be more different, but they teamed together for their adventures, and oh man, what a fun show!
I have the entire series.
I know you do. That's part of why
I started watching it, and then I kind of got away because I've been watching something else. But I loved that relationship. I mean, just how much they hate each other almost.
Yeah.
And there's not even really a lot of respect between the two of them, because one thinks that he deserves the suit. And it's just the snarky, like, one of the great things about that show is the dialogue. Whatever you think about the special effects and the weird storylines and stuff like that, the dialogue, especially between those two characters, is spot on. It's hilarious.
Well, if we're going to talk TV, I can't not mention Knight Rider. I don't care if people don't like the show or... Come on. I mean, you can't not love the relationship between Michael Knight. I don't know if you watch Knight Rider at all, buddy, but...
Oh, Buddy knows.
He froze.
Buddy looks like he's frozen. Yeah.
I broke it with the mention of Knight Rider. Go on, Jamie.
Yeah, no, I was going to say I've got my book there, but it was the Emperor's Edge series by Lindsay Broker, right? And so the main character, Amaranth Lockton, is this very she's an enforcer, so she's like a cop in this steampunk world, and she just she's trying to do everything right, and then she ends up getting paired with this group of whether it's assassins or thieves or con men and different stuff, and just the buddy stuff that ends up happening through that, and again putting together the two different sides and how she's then starting to care for them and stuff, and there's a really neat buddy group dynamic there that I enjoyed a lot as I was reading it, and it's funny too, and quirky. So
and Buddy's back,
I had a lot.
And I'm back.
So I can't think of any better, so I'm gonna put this down as my greatest all-time buddies that I can think of. And it is a book, but for anyone who has never read the book, which everyone should, I'm sure you've seen the movie. And I think the best buddies are probably Inigo Montoya and Fezzik from The Princess Bride.
Oh wow, great call there.
Well played. Yeah.
Yes.
So obviously so I'm sure all of you've seen the movie.
Oh yeah.
One of my favorite movies.
Many times.
Who's read the book?
I have not read the book.
I have not read the book. I have it on my shelf. It's been there for about 15 years.
I actually, I love the book, and actually I need to read. I've got Marathon Man. He also wrote that. That's William Goldman. He wrote the screenplay for Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid. I mean, this guy's just a fantastic writer. But I want to read more of his stuff. I'd like to read some of the screenplays too. But that relationship between those two in the book and the movie is just fantastic. The sword fighter and the giant. So that's I don't know. That's the end of my list. I think I don't think I'll be able to think of any better team than that.
That's a great team.
You could say R2D2 and C3PO, but I'm going to go with Inigo Montoya and Fezzik.
I think it's a better choice.
I was going to do my cheat one, which is the reverse, like the going the other flow. But from that, because it'll still count because there's a book. So in that, what was that, Wheel of Ice, right? The Stephen Baxter Doctor Who book. But the best, in my opinion, Doctor Who combination is Jamie and the Doctor for the second Doctor. And he wrote that very well in that book as well. So, and that's a neat thing too, because there is that sort of buddy, companion, whatever dynamic that is there for them, for the male-male combination that they had there, better than probably any other Doctors had. So
I think my favorite buddy in Doctor Who would have to be K9. I've got a special place in my heart for K9.
That works too.
When they brought him back for a couple episodes in the new series, I mean that for me was a big moment.
Well, and he was not just buddy to the Doctor, but he's buddy to, Romana, or he's buddy to Sarah Jane Smith, and they made a whole show about that, right? So,
yeah.
Because it's so neat how appealing that dynamic is to people, and it really draws them in a lot of things, and it's something where I got a comment that I didn't expect in my second book from people, where that the buddy dynamic of the characters that were there, that made the book for them, and I'm like, huh. And that takes you in a whole new direction. It's exciting, and you can write more of those people and have fun with it. So.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, I've got two. It's a tie. One TB, one book for my best. For the book, it's going to be Bone. You've got Bone, you've got Smiley Bone, Phony Bone, Thorn, Grandma Bin, the Dragon. I mean, it's just a great cast of characters.
And there's lots of different buddy stuff, and then even Grandma and Lucius, and
exactly. There's the interrelationship of all the characters. It's just fantastically written. So that's for my book, and then for my TV, probably Star Trek: The Next Generation. So Jean-Luc Picard, Worf, Riker, Geordi LaForge, all the same sort of interrelationship.
And there you're starting to talk about not just buddies like two friends, but I mean if we're going to talk about group dynamics with sort of more than two people in a relationship like that, I would have to say for me that would be Firefly.
Oh wow!
The crew of the Firefly, just the dynamics there, but the interplay amongst those characters for me is the right way to do it.
That's
all
cool.
The different personalities.
I need to watch that. I
really still haven't watched Firefly.
I have not seen Firefly, but I did start watching Doctor Who. So
okay.
I watched 2 episodes of Doctor Who over the weekend.
Where did you start from?
Chris Eccleston.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's what people said. Start with that one. So I started.
That's where I started. That's all I haven't seen much of the pre-revival yet. Yeah. I've seen a little bit. I've seen some of the who was the third Doctor? It sounds like you guys would know, Jamie. The older Patrick. I
don't know.
Troughton.
And then it's
I don't know.
And the third one is the one whose son is on Gotham.
Right.
Sean. That's crazy. Have you seen the pictures of Sean Pertwee, the dressing up as his dad?
Oh no, I haven't seen that.
Because Sean Pertwee, I don't know if you even realized it when you were watching Gotham, Patrick, but Sean Pertwee is what's his name?
John. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, Sean Pertwee, the son.
Yes. No, sorry. Who does he play on Gotham?
The butler.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's him. As soon as you realize it, you're like, yeah, like you look at, he's got the same nose, he can do the same looks and stuff, and you're like, man, that is cool.
He's one of the coolest parts of that show. I really like
he's fantastic, especially as he got later in that season. I did finally finish that first season. I was gonna say the totally offbeat but sort of the character buddy dynamic that I really enjoy seeing in comedy movies is Owen Wilson and Vince Vaughn. I really like those guys together. I have a lot of time for that, and they both work as buddies for other people too. But together, I'm a huge fan.
Yeah, I like
even
I like Ben
otherwise bad
Stiller and
movies.
Owen Wilson too together.
I'm not so much of a fan of Ben Stiller.
No.
Owen Wilson can sometimes make him palatable for me, but Vince Vaughn and Owen Wilson together, man. And Owen Wilson was Lightning McQueen, so he's even in one of the other ones we mentioned.
True.
There you go.
Underrated actor.
Oh yeah.
And
he's even good with the Little Roman in the Night at the Museum movies as their buddy little thing they've got.
I haven't seen those. I got to see those.
This is fun too.
The first one was funny. Yeah.
And I was going to say,
Then
too,
it just kinda jumped the shark.
since we were talking about William Goldman there, too, I would have to say that Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, as played by Robert Redford and Paul Newman, is one of the great all-time sort of buddy flicks as well. Those two are great.
Oh yeah, that's
And everything,
classic.
and the Sting. I mean, those two guys together are just the perfect pair.
Yeah, I wish they had done more movies. You know, it's just those two, but oh, they were awesome together. Awesome. Together.
So I think, do we have any more buddies we want to talk about before we start to wrap things up? I'm thinking that our topic next week should maybe be Jamie and Michael watch Firefly.
By next week?
Oh, it's only it's only one season.
If I start now, I can finish the whole
Okay,
series.
we'll give you a little more time, but we'll have to have a Firefly
I need to
episode.
work on Doctor Who. You got to pick.
Okay.
It's Firefly or Doctor Who.
Let him do some more Doctor Who. I gotta track down the Firefly first.
Oh, it won't be hard to find. So we'll put that one on the back burner for now, but.
It's definitely high on my TV list.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my wife to watch Firefly too. I was telling her that she'd really like it.
I
just got that totally like off the wall. Everyone talked about it. I saw it like in Best Buy for like $15, and I'm like, sure, I'll try it. And then I watched it in a weekend. It's a great show.
Now you guys haven't seen the show, but remind me, have you seen the movie Serenity?
But you watch that after the show, right?
It
you're
does.
Supposed to. Well,
It doesn't really matter, but yeah, it's okay. So, Buddy, where's the best place for people to connect with you online?
At buddygott.com. I'm also on Facebook and Twitter. Buddygott.com, though I had been away from that for a while, but I'm back into writing now. I'm doing posting a new flash fiction story every Friday, and then maybe have a novel out at the end of the year or early next year. So that'd be a good place to find out information on that.
Okay, and for anybody who's listening, that's Gott with 2 T's.
Yes.
Okay, well, thanks again for coming.
Oh, my pleasure. I had a lot of fun, guys.
Great to finally have you on the show.
Oh, thanks.
And for those of you listening, we would really love it if you could go and rate and review on iTunes. And we will talk to you next week. Have a great week.
Happy reading.
Happy reading.
See ya.